Another edition of the Limitless Leadership Lounge, where we bring you some of the best leaders in the entire world, talking about some of their top leadership techniques to help you, the young and emerging leader, because we know there's not much content out there to actually target you, the young and emerging leader, when you get first promoted to leadership. So I'm John Gehring, alongside Coach Jim Johnson and Dr. Numa Kareem, who joins us from Bangladesh today, and Chad, who we're going to welcome to the show in just a moment. Coach, let's dive in and get today's conversation started.
Yeah, I had the honor of being on Chad's podcast, and I really admired his leadership, and I've been following his work. So I want to give a little intro here. Chad Peterman is the president and CEO of Peterman Brothers. Since taking over the reins in 2015, Chad's work has been met with acclaim from within his industry and earned him national recognition. In 1986, Chad's father started Peterman Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing in Beech Grove, Indiana. When Chad joined his father in 2011, the business had grown from a one-man operation to 21 employees and annual revenues around 4 million. Today, Chad and his brother have taken their father's business to the next level. Peterman Brothers now has over 700 employees across 8 locations. Headquartered in Indianapolis, Indiana, the company is an industry leader with the revenues of over 120 million. The source of success is no secret. Chad believes in order to thrive, leaders must focus on their greatest asset, their team. A testament to what Chad and his brother has accomplished, Peterman Brothers has been named to the Indianapolis Business Journal's Fast 25 in 2019, 20, 21, and 22. In 2022, Chad was listed in the top 40 under 40 by ACHR News. In addition to his book, Chad is spreading the message on his podcast, Can't Stop the Growth, which I have the honor to be a guest on. Without further ado, Chad, welcome to the Limitless Leadership Lounge.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to chat as we talked about earlier, the last one of a 25 that we're
Yeah, yeah.
recording. So we're rolling into the new year.
I know it's
Yeah.
amazing. So, well, Chad, we've done a little bit, and I listen to Dave Ramsey a lot, and he has a family business. So, I'm curious your situation because I know Dave's son is going to be is taking over as like the CEO, and although he's still a personality. But I'm curious. Tell us a little bit about your journey of joining your father and then taking over the business reins.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think everybody kind of has their origin story. For me, growing up, I always saw dad working, but wasn't super mechanically inclined. So just thought, well, that's probably not the place for me. Graduated from college, took a job in the paper and packaging industry, moved away to Charlotte, North Carolina for a while. And was there for probably about 2 years before I think, if I'm honest with myself, I was probably just getting homesick and still not, still young and still not sure what I really wanted to do. So I started poking around into dad's business, like trying to find out what he actually did and all of that stuff. And it kind of, I think at that time realized that it could be an opportunity. And, I was fortunate enough to be in the place that I was. And so, reached out to my dad and asked him if he wouldn't mind if I came and worked with him. And his response was, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I said, "I haven't figured that out yet." And he said, "Well, we'll figure it out along the way. I'm sure you can help us with something." So, that was kind of how I got into it. And, first starting out, I think my idea of what we actually did wasn't super clear. And so trying to understand kind of the technical aspect to a degree. And then as I got settled in, trying to figure out, okay, if I'm going to do this, how do I grow a business? What's that look like? What am I supposed to be doing? All of those things, I think just, throughout time become more clear and you're able to kind of guide the organization in the direction that you want to go.
Mm. And I really love that word that your dad used. We will figure it out because often in life there are so many challenges and problems that are coming at us, and then that is the attitude we should have. Like I will figure it out instead of giving up. So that I always love this this term. My question is, your dad has been doing business for so many years, and then you and your brothers are taking it over. Have you changed the leadership style? Uh, what new type of leadership style did you bring to the company that it transformed into another level from
Yeah,
previously?
yeah, absolutely. So I think for me, in thinking back and what I encourage all kind of family businesses to do, is there was a point in time when it had to become mine and my brother's business. And we had to, craft the vision for where we wanted to go. And that was going to be different than what dad had done up until that point. And that was okay. It wasn't that his way was wrong. It was just we wanted to do something different. And I think one of the most important things that we did back in end of 2015, early 2016, is we crafted what we call kind of the vivid vision. So it's basically a picture of what the company will look like in 3 years. And so I redo it every year because you don't know what's quite going to happen or what things are going to look like or what direction you're going to go in. But it at least casts a vision for the people that are here to know what are we working for. And this is a very kind of high level document, but it served us well. And I think it was critical in that transition for people to know that, okay, the boys have taken over as opposed to just continuing to do it like dad had always done it. We were going to do things a little bit differently. And I think me as the leader, I think I always tell people my secret weapon is that I don't know anything about the trades. I don't know how to plumb. I don't know how to fix a furnace. I don't know how to wire an electrical panel. And I think that that has served us well in being able to think outside the box, not always thinking about how it's always been done and, well, we got to do it this way, well, because we've always done it that way. And so for me, I think that's been kind of the style that I've taken is, we want to in this company, we want to elevate the trades so that our technicians and field professionals can grow without limits and ultimately impacting the communities that they live in. And so that's been kind of our mission and kind of how I kind of attack why we are going to grow, not just simply we're going to get bigger. Our hope is we're going to get better and create a better place that really honor the trades.
Yeah, well, I'm right there with you, Chad. My dad, while my dad is teaching me a lot, and I'm trying to absorb all the information that I can from him. Wrench and I are not best friends, at least yet. So, we
Yeah.
have different strengths, right? But leadership is something we believe here at the Limitless Leadership Lounge can be learned and can be improved upon. And the best leadership training doesn't usually come from formal leadership training courses. It comes from that hands-on experience. So, what are two or three things that you've learned from being a leader, from actually walking the day-to-day work of it? The top couple of things that you've learned about leadership.
Yeah. So, for me, growing up in athletics all my life, I learned a lot from my coaches early on about what that looks like. And I think as a leader, you have to understand that you don't actually get to do the work. Much like a coach, we can prepare the team, but I can't go out there and shoot baskets. I can't go out there and throw the football. So, what am I going to do to support the growth of my team? And so, I think that's always been the thing is like, how can I be helpful? I'm not here to tell people what to do. I'm not here to, lay down the law or here's the rules and you got to follow them. It's to empower people so that they want to go and do that. And so I think that's one of the things that I learned. I think too is, you know, as leaders, we've always got to be improving and developing because in different levels of business, you need a different type of leader, and you have to be willing to adapt. If it's always just, I don't lead the same way, today as did a year ago, 3 years ago, because you're always learning and always changing and implementing. And it's not that, again, like I said with my dad earlier, it's not that what I was doing 2 years ago was wrong. It was, potentially right for that situation. Not that I was doing everything right, but it worked in that situation, but it's not going to work today the same, and it's not going to work 2 years into the future the same. I'm going to have to always be developing. I think Maxwell says it best with the law of the lid, right? It's like you are going to be the barometer at which your company progresses. And if you're not willing to grow and develop, your team probably isn't going to either.
As a leader, conflict is something that we have to learn to handle because I think it's important. So I'm just curious, do you have a story of, because you're working with your brother and your dad, of a story of how you handle conflict either with your dad, because obviously you've changed the business a lot, it's grown so much compared to when you have it, and there's no right or wrong, or even with you and your brother working together, how have you handled that?
Yeah, so I'm terrible at handling conflict. It is not my strength. Um, but I think that you have to, account or the handling conflict all starts with accountability. If you're not holding anybody accountable, then conflict becomes very kind of, what are we going to do? Because no one knows what they're supposed to be doing. And so I think, conflict is good, but I think too, as a leader, you have to step back and understand, why is there conflict? Is the conflict there because you didn't let anybody know what they were supposed to be doing? Is there conflict there because what is the reasoning behind that? For me, and this is, I don't know if this is what your question is aimed at, but obviously in family businesses, there's a lot of emotion and there's a lot that goes pretty deep, a little bit deeper than just a traditional coworker. um, I think one of the things, one was kind of just by chance, and that by chance piece is that me, my dad, and my brother are all interested in different things within the business. So, I think that what me and my brother did early on that helped is basically we kind of wrote our own job description. And I think that's important as a leader for you to, here's the stuff that I want to work on. And here's the stuff that you want to work on. This is your lane. You call the shots here. This is my lane. I'll call the shots here. And we'll do our best not to cross over. And I'll give you if I cross over in your lane, you have the right to say, hey, that's mine. You're in my lane, or vice versa. And so I think really understanding, especially if it's brothers or father son, like what are your job responsibilities, and let's do that. Let's treat it like a business, not like, hey, we'll just all work together at it on these things. Well, that's just not going to work because everybody's going to have different opinions and different ways to attack things. And so for us, that's been really helpful. I think the other piece in the family business that I talked about earlier is my dad's ability, and I still don't know how he does this. My kids are young, but I have not put the pieces together to have them come into the business and me just like totally relinquish control. However, my dad did that in 2015 when we drew out this plan, and this is what we're going to do. He let us do it. And so I think that's important for maybe the first generation. When you're bringing another one in, is like they're going to do their own thing. That business is not going to be the same. You shouldn't want it to be the same. And as long as it's not like unethical or anything like that, but hey, this is the direction they want to take it. I think it's important for them to craft their own vision of what they want it to be. And understanding that there's got to be some separation. Where I see issues in these family businesses, and this is the question I get asked the most, is you have one generation not wanting to relinquish control. And so you have this just infighting, and it never turns out well.
Right.
Makes sense.
My next question to you about values. Every great organization have certain values that not only the leadership but also everybody in the company holds on to those values. Could you share some of your company's values that is shared among everybody and creating
Yeah,
such
absolutely.
change? Yeah.
Absolutely. So, for us, we drafted our core values back in 2020. We knew it was an important piece. We never had them really stated. I think we operated by them. Like that was the interesting part about the exercise. Like, oh, well, yeah, that's how we operate. It's like, good. Let's write it down. So ours are to me the most important one is lead ourselves. We can't lead anybody else if we're not willing to lead ourselves. grow continuously, own results together, do what's right. That was always a big adage of my dad. He always told us, we're going to do what's right. We make a mistake, we're going to own up to it. When we, do a great job, we're going to celebrate it, all of those things. And then the last one is care genuinely. And so I think the important thing about values, and I'm so glad you brought this up because this is a big project for me next year, is we have the values, but what we don't do a great job at is talking about them enough. And so what I've done is essentially every Monday I send out an email to the team, just kind of motivational, whatever I'm kind of thinking about, or something that happened over the weekend that made me think about this, or whatever it may be. And then I'm starting in 26 every Wednesday. I just basically select one value every Wednesday, and I'm going to send out an email to the team, and it's going to talk about that value. And we're going to talk about them. We're going to, celebrate when people are acting in accordance with those. We're going to point out when people aren't acting with them, and understand that this is what this value means, and this is how we operate by it. So I'm really excited to have that kind of roll out here. An email will go out Wednesday, kind of explaining what we're doing, and then every Wednesday after that for 52 straight weeks, we're going to talk about the values and probably do it again in 27. And so my goal is to at some point next year to be able to walk around and ask people and for them to be able to rattle off all five. It
Yeah.
sounds silly and simple, but I think it's super important.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Chad, just
and there are so
something.
many.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to. I have just a thought that there are some organizations who are also putting those stories of their employees who are practicing those values on their website. So that can inspire so many, not only within the organization, but from outside. So if you are talking about care, is there a story about one of your employees showed care when they were in the work? And that story could be highlighted or something like that. And I love these storytelling. Now they have like chief storytelling officer in many organizations because these are the stories that makes a difference building the organization culture. So I'm so glad that you have those integral components already in place and you're practicing. You're going to practice that in your organization. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's just vitally important. I think it gets overlooked a lot because it doesn't,
Mhm.
it doesn't like translate to a P&L or something like that. And it's like, well,
Right.
this is the foundational building blocks of what's actually going to allow us to achieve what we're
Mhm.
setting out to do.
I think I got to just delve in one thing. It's because it sounds like, and it's something that I really encourage when I talk to leaders, is that you've had values, which are great, but now you seem like you're really clarifying what are the behaviors that fit those values. So is
Yeah.
that really what you're thinking with with these emails and then going around and talking to people?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, when you talk about lead ourselves, that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of
Yeah,
different people.
right.
And really goes for all five of our values. And so, yeah, I think, what does that mean? How do we act like that? Because, while these values align to a lot of my personal values,
Yeah.
they may not to other people and their personal values. So I think it's important to really tell the story of what it means to act with these values. And when you join this organization, this is how we act. And we act like this in every situation, regardless of outcome or what's happening. So yeah, I think it's really important.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense that you learned a lot from your dad, right? A lot of people probably ask you that. What did you learn from your dad? And that's important, right? But we know that in leadership and in life, we learn things from a variety of different mentors. Who are some of the other mentors and what have they taught you about leadership in business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, when I look at my mentors, they fall in a bunch of different buckets. I have a group of guys who all run large companies within the trades. And, I'm talking with them usually every single day. Some of it's just making fun of each other or, telling a funny story. But, that's a group of guys that when I, when I need something or like, hey, how do you do this? Or why are we stumbling over this? That's a group that I reach out to first of, hey, this is what needs to be done. I think for me, too, I think the important thing to understand about a mentor is they don't always have to know that you're their mentor. They can be unofficial. I've had a number of mentors over the years that never knew that they were, but I watched every single move that they ever made. And I think that's very similar for, I'm a big sports guy. That's, usually all my leadership examples come back to sports in some form or fashion. And so, I look at a lot of these great coaches and how they're able to really kind of mold this team and get the best out of players and different things like that. So I take a lot from how they do things, how they carry themselves. How they do interviews, how they do, interviews after a win, interviews after a loss, like what are they saying? And so for me, those are always things that I'm, constantly, looking at to see how can I improve or what's is my outlook what it should be given this situation.
That's a great point. It's interesting. The question I'm going to delve into, because curious, I was doing a lot of leadership presentations to businesses, but the last couple of years, the marketplace shared with me they wanted to hear more about building great team culture. So I have how to build a great team culture. I'm curious because culture, I believe, when we talked before, is really important to you. If you were to zero down, because there's a lot to building culture, but to two or three ideas that's helped you build a great culture at Peterman, what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two things that come to mind. One, culture is consistency. Culture is built on what you do day in and day out. For us, it's every Tuesday at 8:30, we have leadership training. It's only 30 minutes, but all anybody who manages anybody else is required to come. And you can log in remotely if you got to be out on a job or whatever it is, but we want you there. We made that commitment last year and we said, hey, if we're going to be about developing leaders, we need to be consistent. We can't just have hey, we had a speaker in and, then we don't talk about it for 3 months. And so we made the commitment that every single Tuesday, as long as we're working, we're doing training. And so for me, that's been a huge piece. And then I think, with the what I talked about earlier with the core values email, what's the most important thing? It's consistent. It's not, oh well, I thought about it this week and then I don't think about it. It's all about consistency. And then I think the other piece is showing that you care. We're all people at the end of the day, and we all want to be, cared about. And so I think so many times these companies can become so big that you don't do the little things that show people that you care. One of the things that I do as a leader is I have a report generated every week, and I text everybody on their birthday. And so, if it falls on the weekend, you may get a belated birthday on Monday, depending on what I'm up to. But without fail, every single day. Well, some days are weird. There are weird days when you start looking at birthdays. We'll have seven people born all on the same day, and then other days where there's
Yeah.
no one's birthday. So, but it's things like that. Like, I make it a point to. I don't know everybody on the team's name like by heart, but I try to learn as many of them as I can. I talk to every new hire class that comes in, and I tell them our story and why I do what I do and what we're here to do. So I think it's a lot about its consistency and showing people that you care can take you a long way. You don't have to be the smartest guy in the room. You just got to show people that you care and they'll want to work and do a good job.
Chad, you struck one curiosity chord for me. Can you share a little bit of what you do in that 30-minute leadership training?
Yeah. So super simple. Again, not the smartest guy. So I take a lot. Like this year, we've done three books. So essentially, we did. what have we done? We did Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. So I always tell people, they're like, I don't know what to do. I'm just like, just grab a book. It's all right there. So we did that book. We did Unconscious Leadership, or Conscious Leadership. Unconscious.
Consciously.
That'd be a heck of a book. Conscious Leadership. And
Yeah,
we
I
did
know.
Lencioni's Five Dysfunctions of a Team. We did all three of those books, and then we'll just do random stuff. Like tomorrow, I'm doing it, and we're like, it'll be a kickoff for the for next year and kind of what we're after. So it'll be a little bit different there. But yeah, I mean, I've got a whole file folder. I've been doing. We used to do it in the mornings. We've had a few different variations of it. I used to do it every other week. Then we moved to every week. And so myself and then my COO, who's a hell of a lot better teacher than I am, because that's what he was before he started selling furnaces. But we alternate weeks, and yeah, usually grab a book or something that he's thinking about, or whatever. So it's more not as planned as you might think, but yeah, it's been really good, and I think too, when we think about leadership, it's all the stuff that you just need to be reminded of, right? And so that's one of my things. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not doing any of that. I'm not having consistent one-on-ones with my team. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing. Okay, perfect. Let me get back on the bus. And I think that's, you'll never be perfect, and you'll never stop learning about leadership. We do it in all facets of our life.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
And there is this quote from David Brooks. He's an organizational psychologist. He said that during the Industrial Revolution, efficiency was the key to the success or performance of a company, but now it is relationship building is the key. What are your thoughts about it? And what uh, what are some strategies you are apart from this the book club and discussion about sending birthday greetings? Are there any other strategies you can share that others can use for these kind of relationship building? Because an organization with 6 people, an organization with 700 people, there are so many different dynamics going on. So how do you keep it together and share what you are dreaming of?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I send out a lot of thank you notes as well. So that's when people are doing good jobs, or, have something come up in their life. They have a kid, they, accomplish something, high performers, different stuff like that. I think the other thing that we do consistently is we have a COO town hall every first Friday of the month, where we honor top performances from the previous month, and point out people and share news. I think a lot of relationship, in business is just communicating. When
Right.
people feel that they're heard and they're in the know, then I think those relationships get stronger there. Um, I think another one is just the simple stuff, like, asking someone how their weekend was, or, getting out and talking to people. I always tell people I'm an introvert. I could sit in my office all day long and be perfectly fine. But what does the organization need from me as the leader? Well, it doesn't need me sitting in my office, not talking to anybody. And so that's been probably harder for me, in that I'm not like the extrovert bubbly person. I'm just like to get down to business, and people say I'm way too serious all the time, but that's just the way I operate. So but I know that being an introvert and just serious all the time is not going to it's not what the organization needs for me. I always say my number one job is to drive the vision and make sure that the culture is the best that it can be, um, at all times.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, and speaking of that culture, I think it's reflected a lot, and this is ridiculous. You guys have over 10,000 reviews up on Google. Most of them, a vast majority of them, positive, of course. And I've actually never seen a number like that up on Google. So clearly you've built a following, a client base who is satisfied and coming back for more. What does it take as a leader to instill the confidence needed in your team to treat people so well? Because that's what a lot of these reviews are talking about, how well your team has treated people. That's got to start at the top. Tell us some strategies how to instill that in your team.
Yeah, I mean, I think the number one is what we talked about, right? It's show them that you care. If they feel cared about,
Mm.
they're going to do a good job for the customer. We always say our number one customer is the people that work here. I'm going to make decisions that are in the best interest of them, because if I do, then my hope is that they make decisions that are in the best interest of the customer that they come in contact with. And I think it's really linking those two, where our philosophy is if you take care of your people, and you run the processes, the revenue will follow. If you get them out of whack and you're focused on is revenue, revenue, revenue. Well, like it's we are in a people business. We are employing people who are tradespeople, and we're taking care of customers. And so for me, if it's you've got to understand that you cannot run these businesses by a spreadsheet. Don't work like that, because people have stuff that come up, and you may have a policy in place, but stuff happens. You have a sick kid, you've got this. So we have to be there for our people as well. And I think being there, you've got to show them. You can't just write it down on a piece of paper. We
one meetings. So tell us about your process as far as how many one-on-ones are they consistent, and what kind of things do you talk about in one-on-ones?
Yeah, absolutely. So mine is a touch different because I have three direct reports and we talk pretty much every day, morning, noon, and night. So we kind of have an ongoing one-on-one, if you will. Um, but all of our managers, this has been a big push for us, and I think they've really done a great job of embracing it. Is they're depending on the size of their department, obviously. They're typically meeting with their direct reports every other week. And we I think one of the things is it's one thing just to say, well, meet with your people. We actually have a training on how to do it effectively. And some of it is the personal side, but it shouldn't be the whole 30 minutes shouldn't be all personal. The other big piece of it is talking about KPIs. So we did a big project last year that we rolled out, where we call it paths to progression. So basically there are levels in every single trade of level one technician, level two, level three, level four, and there's certain KPIs attached to those. And so what we neglected for so long was showing our people what good looks like and what's possible. There was no scoreboard. And so we introduced that, and so that is a big topic of that. It's also how they can earn more money. So if you move up from a level one to a level two, well, obviously there's monetary incentive to do that. Um, but I think that's the biggest piece. And if you're not talking about KPIs and performance, and then also how can I help you achieve more? Like, hey, what are we going to work on this for the next 2 weeks? Let's focus on this because that one's a little bit down. It's not well, you're not. It's not a session where you're just pointing out everything that they're doing wrong. We want to celebrate the highlights, but also as a leader, understand how can I help you? I want to see you succeed. I want to see you move up. I want to see you do all of these things. How can I help? And then I think the other piece of it is kind of been a theme of this talk is consistency. I told the guys, especially in the trades, that a lot of our trade professionals operate in a no news is good news type environment. And I said consistent news is better. So you can't just not do it. So the best thing to do is just schedule it, because then they don't think they're in trouble. We're scheduled every other Tuesday at 7:30. I meet with my manager. Perfect. I know it's on there. If I have things, I can bring to them then, so on and so forth. And so that was a big piece too. Is like literally taking managers and being like, let's put it on your calendar. Who are you meeting with Monday? Who are you meeting with Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? On and on, so that everybody is on the same page, and that meeting with your manager doesn't mean bad things. It could mean a whole lot of good things.
Mhm. Well said. Renew, I know you have one final question.
Yeah. What would be your legacy as the leader of your company? Have you thought
Yeah,
about it?
yeah, think about it quite often. My legacy is to build a place where trade professionals are honored. They're compensated as if they are the doctors and lawyers of our society. Because to me, they're that important.
Right.
Everybody likes to go home, and I'm sure at this time of year, you'd like your furnace to kick on. It's always nice to turn on the light switch, and when you can wash your hands in the sink, that's a good thing too. Without that, without these professionals that know how to fix these things, because they do break from time to time, usually at the wrong time, or the time you're not expecting it. These people are doing all of the hard work to make where we live and the country we live in, the best in the world. And that is why I am so passionate about that. My hope is when it's time for me to hang it up, everybody that has worked here, ever worked here, whatever it may be, knows that we stand for that. And we're kind of the beacon of how important the trades are. It's a viable career path, and you can make a darn good living and impact a lot of people doing it.
That's
John,
right.
I have
I'm
one
just
more question. Do
sorry.
Yep.
you
Go
have
ahead.
one? So I'm my last question, Chad, and we appreciate all your insights today. Would something that's, because your company's grown so much, tell us a story or your process of the hiring process, because that is so essential. And maybe a time when you got it right or a time that you got it wrong, or maybe one of each.
Yeah, I've gotten it wrong plenty of times, but I think we do a good job of vetting people. Um, I think too, another key piece of that, in improving retention is your onboarding process. A lot of people think, well, I found this person, they accepted my offer, cool. I'll just throw them the keys and say, go run some calls. And our onboarding process is 2 weeks long. We want to get them all the information, train them the right way. When you come here, you don't run your process, you run the Peterman way. And that's what we call it. That's what we teach. This is how we run a call. This is how we deliver exceptional customer service. And I think that's the biggest piece. I've seen, a number of people, including ones that worked here, left, and then came back, which are my favorite hires,
Yeah.
because a lot of young people, especially when they're first getting into the trade, think that the grass is greener, or someone may be an offer, or whatever it may be, only to find out that it wasn't as good as what they thought. And so when we get those people back, it's very interesting to see. They may have had some issues in the past, and we're more than not going to give you a second chance, and let you prove yourself. There are some instances where that isn't the case, but in most instances, hey, we're going to have you back, but here's the deal: these are the rules, and the issues that we had in the past are going to be a thing of the past, and we're going to do things this way, the right way, every time. And so for me, that's been the biggest piece. And then I think the other piece is, we invested in 2020 and started our own school, where we train people that have no
Nice.
experience in the trades. And for me, that's been really impactful. I think personally, giving people the tools to have their own career within the trades. But I think in there, we're able to look for a lot of the values, right? Because we can train them on the technical side of things. Whereas if you don't have that resource, you're kind of reliant on hoping you can find someone who's really technically sound, but then also has all the other ingredients to be successful. And that's a really tough combination. We found some, trust me, we had some really good guys and gals here, but that piece has been really impactful to the business as well.
Yeah,
Chad, I
2020.
gotta kid you a little bit that John and I, although we probably are not planning on going to work for you, but we probably should attend your school. That would make our wives a lot
Yeah.
happier.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah,
Tell me
I probably
about
needed to go to I probably need to go to class as well. So.
it. You mentioned starting that in 2020. That was a hard time for a lot of businesses. What was that like for you guys?
So for us, COVID, it's funny. We don't even really acknowledge really 2020, 21, 22, because it was so for us, I mean, business was incredible. We doubled in size
Wow.
in 365 days because people were at home, they were spending money, money was being pumped in the economy, and it was crazy. It's not like that today. A lot of that demand was pulled up into those COVID years, which made them, artificially inflated.
Mm,
And so for us, starting the school in 2020 was because we couldn't hire enough people.
mm,
Literally, the business strategy during COVID in this business was hire as many people as humanly possible and you will win. Whereas that's not the case today. There's not near the demand that there was during those COVID years, and I think there's a number of reasons, but it's just a different business to operate. So we really look at our numbers like 2019 to 2024, and everything in between is just throw it out the window because you're never going to be able to budget and predict and off of that.
Makes sense. Makes
yeah.
sense. Chad, we can't thank you enough for your time here. I do have one final question for you, just a little bit off topic, but you mentioned sports, your passion for sports and leadership. There is something, a pretty remarkable story happening quite close to you. The Indiana Hoosiers kicking off their playoff run as we're recording this in just a couple of days. And since this is going to come out in February, we're gonna have the opportunity to hold you accountable here and see if your predictions actually do come to fruition. So tell us, are you a Hoosier fan? And if you are, how are you feeling about the upcoming playoffs?
Yeah, so I am not allowed to be an IU fan. My wife works for Purdue and went to
Oh,
Purdue.
okay.
So yes, touchy subject. I will not have it out there on the airways that I am vocally supporting IU. It's a great story. I wish them all the best, but I cannot openly root for them, or else I will be in trouble at home. So yeah, it's been exciting. I mean, really for Indiana in general. I mean, we had the Pacers last year, not so much this year. The Colts had a somewhat of a run there, and then that ended miserably. I was at the game yesterday.
Yeah.
Not great. But yeah, I use success. Purdue's, number 5 in basketball right now. So I'm hoping for come February, I'm hoping for a Final Four run in March because the Final Four is in Indy, and I live about 15 minutes for the stadium. So I will be heading down there, hopefully watching Purdue do their thing. So
Well, there you go.
Chad, I got a little sidekick as I know you being an athlete. Now, were you disappointed that he called Philip Rivers instead of yourself to replace as quarterback?
I played defense. I'm not much for throwing the ball, but yeah, it's been a good story. I mean, it's quite impressive to not have played. I know he's coaching high school football and probably throwing the ball around still some, but those are the best in the world. For you, 5 years after not having played to be able to pick it up and go was pretty darn impressive.
Yeah, it sure was.
Yeah,
Sure
yeah.
was.
Well, a lot of great leaders there in Indiana. Coach Painter, Coach Signetti, and yeah, obviously you have your opinions and your favorite of the two. But we can't thank you enough, Chad, because you're a phenomenal leader yourself. So we learned a lot from you, and
Yeah.
really my biggest takeaway when it comes to bringing on the right people on your team, and then not just bringing them on, but retaining them and developing them. That's something that you showed our audience is really important, not just in some of these more white collar industries, but also in the trades too. So thank you so much, Chad, for what you shared with us today on the Limitless Leadership Lounge.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thanks for having me.
And Chad, just lastly, where